Hey there everyone, I'm Rasenryu, but my friends call me Rasen. Today we're going to talk about Detective Pikachu. Is this a riveting detective story, or a tale too elementary to be fully enjoyed? Let's take a look. For me, there is a real interest in this game. Since I first learned about it in 2015 before its release, I thought the concept of a talking Pikachu solving mysteries was cute, interesting, and a little genius. With Pikachu being the figurehead of Pokemon in general, and having him solve mysteries in a way akin to my absolute favorite game series franchise, the Ace Attorney series, therefore combining some of my favorite game series elements together in one game, I really wanted to play it. Then, when it launched on February 3rd, 2016, my hopes were dashed because it was a Japan exclusive game, and I cannot yet fully comprehend Japanese, though I am working on it thanks to the Duolingo app. For this review there will be spoilers, so if you would rather play this game without them, turn back now or suffer the consequences of knowing things before you're supposed to. Yeah. The story begins, well, quite abruptly actually. Tim Goodman, the character you play in this story, exits a train into Rhyme City. His mission? To find his father who'd gone missing. As soon as he exits the station, he runs into Pikachu, who's trying to get anyone to understand what he's saying. Tim can understand him though, so they start solving mysteries. I'm not kidding. Their encounter leads immediately to getting a little girl's necklace back. I told you it was abrupt. The game gets a little more interesting though, as you have to follow clues in order to solve mysteries and crimes, all in order to get more information about Tim's father, Harry. What makes it the most interesting is that not only can you interview people, but you can also interview Pokemon with the help of Pikachu. That's about where the interest ends though, unfortunately. I haven't finished the game. In fact, I'm only in the middle of Chapter 5. I plan to complete it, but right now, with the exception of Chapter 4, I can say that this game bores me to death. I am thoroughly disappointed with how this game turned out. Thoroughly. I actually fell asleep a few times while playing it. Okay, enough beating around the bush. Although I had a little trouble figuring it out myself, let me explain why I think Detective Pikachu is one of the most boring games I've ever played. First off, the difficulty. The game is extremely easy. You walk around, you press the action button, and you scroll through text, and repeat. That sounds like standard fare, you may be saying, but there is a point in the game where that gets to be uninteresting and unentertaining. For example, when everyone you talk to has about the same thing to say about a particular topic, but there is one particular person or Pokemon that has the clue you're looking for. Still standard, you say? Well, what if that particular person or Pokemon is hidden within 10 to 20 individuals, all with about 2 to 4 of the same answers to your inquiries? I hope you can understand where I'm going with this. The amount of time that I spent on the first chapter alone asking different people and Pokemon about a missing necklace that had nothing to do with finding Tim's father, by the way, made me so extremely sad and exhausted that I wanted to put down the game right then and there. So I did. Yes, I was that bored. And the game asks you if you want to select the easy difficulty before starting, as if you couldn't just almost literally mash the action button to get through the game because there are no penalties for deducing something wrong. The puzzles and deductions are literally elementary, and if you happen to get it wrong, Pikachu gives you a figurative slap on the wrist until you get it right. I'm a little insulted, quite honestly. I mean, talk about easy. And speaking of ease, let's talk about the controls. I don't want to reiterate my previous point, but in a game where you're actually walking around looking for clues and such, you'd think there'd be more to it than moving and tapping A. Well, it turns out there is, because in a few cutscenes when it gets, quote-unquote, particularly dangerous for Tim and Pikachu, a QuickTime event activates. Now, it would be a nice change of pace in such a boring game to have an event to break up the monotony, but as it turns out, these QuickTime events are just as boring. You either have to press the action button in time with a slowly closing circle, or press that same action button multiple times in order to complete the scene. The fact that these QuickTime events don't have a series of different buttons to press, or a series of quickly closing circles to press in time, something interesting in this slow-moving game, tells me two things. That the devs probably didn't really care about gameplay as much as story, though the story is not very impressive either, and that Detective Pikachu was not made for me, but was instead made for the children demographic. Now, I don't know what happens when you intentionally miss the event or press a different button altogether, but if it's anything like the never lose difficulty, then the quick time either resets every time you miss, giving you multiple chances to get it right, or you just automatically get it right and there are no consequences for failure. Now, let's talk about the music. The piece of a game where, even if you're not having the time of your life, you can still have a somewhat enjoyable time. You can't have a somewhat enjoyable time. I'm so very sad about this as well. In a franchise where you have amazing music from places like Lavender Town, Ecruteak City, and Diglett Cave, and amazing themes like when you encounter another Pokemon trainer and when you fight the Elite Four. The music, as far as I am in the game, which again is the 5th chapter, can all be summed up in one word: dull. Not only is the 3DS inherently quiet in the sound department, but none of the background music in Detective Pikachu has any real excitement to it. There aren't even any mystery tracks that would add intrigue, and when Tim makes a deduction and calls out the criminal, there's no real fanfare or excitement in the music. It feels like kind of a "hooray, you did it, player, good work I guess" sort of vibe. Now, I've talked a lot about what Detective Pikachu did wrong, and honestly I think there are a few things I've missed. But let me now talk about what it did right, or at least okay and interesting enough for me to not call it bad. And pretty much all of the things I'll talk about now is in the 4th chapter. Now, not all of the puzzles and deductions are simple. Yes, they all seem to be laid out the same way where you just have to press the A button and you win. But some are a little smart. A little. I'm talking about the secret path puzzle in chapter 4. In this one, you have to use the clues you find as well as short and long-term knowledge of the Pokemon world in order to solve the puzzle, like remembering what Azumarill and Timber looks like, and knowing that Shellos changes form. It's not a huge test of knowledge, but it's a little interesting. Even the entrance to the puzzle is kind of well hidden, so there's a bit of an exploration element. And the characters on the island are more interesting than in the other chapters so far. Pikachu has one of his best interactions where Manectric throws Pikachu's hat away when Pikachu tries to play fetch with him. At the very least, it got a giggle out of me. He also has a good scene with Tropius, where Tropius gives his chin bananas to Pikachu. It's unfortunate that there aren't too many of these kinds of interactions, not amazingly interesting ones anyway. I like that Pikachu has these little cutscenes where he connects with different Pokemon, but I wish they weren't just worthy of a chuckle. When I first saw the game I thought, a talking Pikachu that solves mysteries? That's such a silly concept and I can't wait to see how silly they go with it. They didn't go anywhere near far enough in my opinion. The overarching story where Tim is looking for his father is okay at best so far. I've uncovered that Harry was investigating R, a Pokemon superdrug made from Mewtwo's cells, and someone thought he knew too much, so they tried to kill him. That's all I know for now. I'm going to finish the game though, and hopefully this part of the game is amazing, though I'm not really holding my breath. I'm sort of at a crossroads with saying whether this game is bad or just okay. It's somewhere in that area. In this mashup of a game where they could have had a serious detective story with brilliant puzzles and interesting characters, or a really silly game where everything was sort of a joke, they didn't really run with either direction well enough for me to fully enjoy this game. Chapter 4 was a breath of fresh air though, and Chapter 5 is a little interesting so far, where I'm investigating a Pokemon rampage from a year prior to the events of the game, and the only ones I can interview are Pokemon. So maybe the game will get better as I progress? Though once again, I'm not holding my breath. Well, though I'm not fully enjoying this particular game like I would have liked, I did enjoy making this video. If you enjoyed this review and want to see more like it, mash those like, sub, and bell buttons, and let me know what you think of Detective Pikachu in the comments below. In case you haven't heard, Detective Pikachu is getting a live-action movie. Slated for release on May 10th, 2019, this adaptation will be the first live-action movie in the history of the franchise, which itself is pretty cool. And just to get a little insight of how it might turn out, we have Rob Letterman directing it, Nicole Perlman and Alex Hirsch writing it, and Ryan Reynolds playing the voice of Detective Pikachu. I have to say I'm excited all over again to see how this movie turns out. Here's hoping my excitement isn't dashed again. On that note, I'm Rasenryu, and I'll see y'all next time. By the way, I wanted to get a Detective Pikachu amiibo, but I can't find it anywhere. Sucks to be me, I guess.